school districts are very isolated, very remote. So we are going to learn some of the difficulties you have. Part of this learning is to start documenting, and we're building a business plan right now to replace SACE. But the SACE as you understand it today won't be what you'll see tomorrow. Maybe it'll be the same what you see, but the background won't be. It'll be a lot more modular, so that it's specialized. What you see as menus and what you do for your job will be designed with your help. But from the background out, it'll be totally different. It's probably going to take us 2 to 3 years, government time 4, to build something like this. We're going to hire some business systems analysts, but their sole specific task is to reach out to people like yourself, out in the school districts, out in the different schools, all the way down to a teacher and what their experience is. Because what we want is an ability that this system can be used by everyone and has the flexibility for some, have very far advanced systems. I was at Dysart. Is anybody here from Dysart? Yeah. Okay. I was out at Dysart last week, and I was pretty impressed with what they're doing. And so those will still have them. What we're hoping is to provide those that don't have a system that has some modular pieces that allows you to catch up to those. That's the vision. And we'll keep you informed as we take this. We've just started this effort. In fact, as you know, there's a REAL grant in Maricopa. There's a TIF grant in ASU. There's a couple other grants that are percolating in the state, in the community colleges. So those grants will help us pilot something. Then ultimately, we're also going to have to look for some type of funding to fully roll something out for the whole system. But that's SACE. The student longitudinal data warehouse. We have, and I don't want to confuse everybody with what I'm going to throw out in technical terms, 49 measures. And what is a measure? How did a student do on Ames? Is one measure. There's 49. How did a district? So you can cut and dice data. What we haven't done very well is train. And our front end of this tool is not very friendly to non-technical people. It uses Excel Power Pivot. And if you're not a pivot person and not know how to parse data, it's very difficult. So part of our other partnerships is we're looking to have one of our partners build the front end that will make it very user-friendly. If you've been on the Department of Education website for the U.S. government, they just put a whole new website for data. And it's very friendly. You can pound in very, very easily. And we want it to be easy for both you, students, teachers. We want you to be able to see where you are and apply all the different models that we're developing. So I'd like to get, since the superintendent just came in and his time is very limited, I'd like to have him come up to the stage and, well, do we have to mic him? I'm sorry.
Are you completely finished, though? I'm going to go ahead and...
Do you want me to finish?
Yeah, just...
Well, because I'll take questions at the end, after, because I'll take more questions, because I think that he was going to take some questions. I think I'm close, to, depending on what kind of questions they give you. So we'll mic you, sir.
Wow, big crowd. I'm John Huppenthal. I'm the Superintendent of Public Instruction, and I primarily came out to give you a message today to put the computer system in a broader framework of the whole system a little bit. Mark is the expert on the IT system and the vision for how we're going to incorporate that into the broader vision. But the vision that I've laid out, and of course that you all, I'm confident, accept, is that our mission is to put in place an excellent education for every child. And that all starts with the classroom, a well-organized classroom with a teacher that feels strongly supported, and everything radiates back out from that. So all of that, what we do as a department, we're thinking of that end goal. In order for that classroom to perform well, for that teacher to get excellent support by you all, we have to provide excellent support to school districts and schools, and that has to be our motto. As a matter of fact, we laid it out that, to provide knock your socks off service. And of course, the SACE system right now is the antithesis of knock your socks off service. It's, it's at the other end of the spectrum. So everything in life is a mission, a journey. We're looking down the road to knock your socks off service, and we're saying, what do we have to do with that system right there to get there? Now, we have enormous resource challenges, just as you all do right now. When we look at other states that have been successful with high-performance longitudinal data systems and financial systems, we see investments of $25, $30, $40 million that they've pumped into these. We don't have those resources available to us. We are working as hard as we can to put in place partnerships with the other entities that need this system to work to try to get those resources, but we are working on this hours every day. It's our mission, and of course you're the direct recipients working with that data system. So that's where this system fits in the overall scheme of things. We have no doubt as to the importance of both the longitudinal data system and the financial information system. It is distracting you all from your mission and your support of the classroom every single day, burdening you. We understand that to the core of our hearts. We want you to know that we go to bed thinking about this thing and wake up thinking about it, because in the overall scheme of things, this is at ground zero. So having put that in that framework, I'm ready to open it up for questions.
And I have a list of, I'll use this microphone, but there's always crowds aren't you? There's a crowd, there it is. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Crowds always don't want to, ask questions, so I have some questions that you all provided to us, and I'm going to throw them out there.
Now we have a lady who put up her hand, so why don't we, if we might start with her, and then we'll go to the...
Yeah, go to the... Put up their hand. Let me put this so that we can get taped.
And I just I'm encouraged by all the people that are here today and by the statements that you've made so far, but one question I have that is difficult on users' end is the communication with all the different departments that pull data from SACE, the timeline of when they pull it, and it doesn't feel like those departments communicate with one another about the data that they pull and the timeline of when they pull it. And it's on the user's end, it's very difficult to make everything happen when it's supposed to happen. And so I would really encourage that communication of all the different committees, departments that pull data and look at data and analyze data, and the timeline that all happens, because it doesn't feel like they talk to one another.
Can you give us an example, a specific example?
Well, for example, Ames labels are being pulled today. There's the AYP data that gets pulled, and somebody help me out here. The SPED data integrity, and there's just
now I have to confess, when you say that data is pulled, you're saying it's being downloaded?
No. So if they're accessing data that you've uploaded to SACE and they're pulling Title I data out, they're pulling like Ames labels.
So they're going to take that. So they're at a specific times they're moving data from one point to another to use that for some process that has consequences for you all?
Yes.
And so your perception is that when that happens, they haven't. So if you could complete the loop for me.
Well, it doesn't feel like there's communication among all the different departments. Somebody help me out here, be more specific. But
can you repeat?
The ESS, the SPED data that gets pulled and analyzed.
Okay.
The timeline, the timing of it all happening, and
So
sometimes...
if we might, let's complete the loop on one particular piece of data and at what point the difficulties are caused for you. So you talk about pulling the Ames data, or what was the other data that you mentioned?
In the spring, they pull the AYP data.
Okay, so they will start to move data. That has consequences for you. It's going to result in labels for the schools. And in the process of doing that, they are not, there's some other department that's doing something, and can you sort of complete the loop a little bit there for me? We got
along the same line, what occurred last year was that in order for us to get all of our ELL program participation data in prior to AYP extraction, we had a due date of the third Friday in June. Research and Evaluation closed SACE to aggregate data the previous Friday. So we lost an entire week of being able to do our reconciliations that directly affect our AYP labels and our AMAO because they closed SACE down for a week and we couldn't submit any information. We are all still doing corrections on last year.
So okay, so there was a week offset. Some our research and evaluation people closed off. I see Yousef. Do you want to talk to
I think the problem was there was lack of coordination. The system was set up to process certain, I believe it was the ELL data aggregation at one point in time. At the same time, research evaluation needed to shut down the system to do other processes. So what happened is there's competing resources, if you say so. One unit or one specific department within ADE needed the system to shut down to aggregate certain data. The other unit needed to keep the system open to aggregate their data and give the schools time to upload their data. So once the, let's say, SPED shut down the system, the schools didn't have the opportunity to upload these correction or data that they needed for ELL purposes. So that's where the competing resources takes place. But now with the changes we're having, as Mark mentioned, SACE will not shut down. So we should not really have that problem anymore. That should address that particular problem. But I agree with you. I mean, I think the superintendent made it clear we need to talk to each other. We need to provide better communications to the field, and that's going to start in the department. So we will have better coordination and communication internally. So whenever we give you that communication, it's clear. You have a timetable. You will know what to expect. As a matter of fact, I think we updated our calendar event recently. So you will see improvement. It takes time, as the superintendent and Mark just mentioned, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
So you're saying that the departments have already started communicating and talking to each other better this year than they did in last year?
Correct. We started the process. We're not there yet.
I mean, yeah, but
hopefully we'll get there soon.
Now, Robert Franciosi, who's over research and evaluation, he's up on the 4th floor. Yousef, what floor are you on?
The 2nd floor.
You're on the 2nd floor? One of the things, I'm sort of a student of organizational theory, and one of the things you find in organizations is people on different floors don't talk to each other. And so we have to overcome that, though. That's our problem, but it's just a well-known phenomena. Should I get Robert on the phone and embarrass him a little bit, or?
So based on what your question was, if SACE was online to you, back to the circle, if SACE was online to you, and you could still do your data work all day long, what happens behind the scene doesn't affect you, right?
Well,
That's what I want to go to the loop.
Here's what the concern is. That if the special ed department is going to pull data out of SACE and say, that's where you are, fine.
They're taking this for other people.
Okay. So if they're pulling the information, the SPED information from the special ed department, and we're in a whole other department in our school district responsible for that data and it being correct and making corrections to it. If you on the front end are telling us, hey, you can keep making your changes, but you're not processing them. so that when the special ed people are pulling the data and saying, hey, that's not right, and we said, we would send up the changes. That's the problem. We need to be able to set up our changes, get them